Hi everybody, welcome to the Nick the Brave Chemo Kitties and Canines podcast. I'm your host, Nick the Brave. As someone battling cancer, I know how important it is to stay positive in the rough times. This is the only podcast that looks at the heroes behind the scene who help people that need it the most. Hi everyone, welcome to the Nick the Brave Chemo Kitties and Canines podcast. I'm your host, Nick the Brave, and I'm so excited about today's special guest, Dr. Thomas Murray. Dr. Murray serves as a director in innovation for the Future Schools, a project of Alliance for Excellent Education located in Washington, D.C. I think his work is especially important right now with many kids like me who are learning from home and the mindset we all have about what we are doing. Hi, Dr. Murray. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Nicholas, and I'm so glad to be here. The honor is truly mine. I love the work that you are doing and your podcast, and so thank you for having me.
I have to tell you that I've watched some of your videos before this podcast, and I think what you say to teachers is great. You are so positive.
Thank you so much, Nicholas. And, I think that when I get to work with teachers and other educators around the world, they are working so hard as they always do. And this time, just like, students like you around the world are working in different ways and working really hard. I try and keep that positive lens to do my best to encourage, to inspire, and to recognize the goodness in people and to recognize the goodness in the work and the hearts of people, whether it's somebody like you or a great teacher, principal, or somebody else like that across the country. So thank you for your kind feedback.
This podcast is about people who help others. You have many things going on in your life. How do you strive to help other people as you do all your jobs?
Well, thanks for asking. And I can't say I balance it all well, because you're right. Just there are a lot of things going on, and I feel like anybody you talk to these days certainly has a lot of things going on in life. First and foremost, I'm a dad, husband, and I have two children. And so my daughter is Paisley, and she's a fifth grade student learning in a hybrid environment. And my son is a first grade student, part of my whole world and why I do what I do. But in terms of work, getting to work across the country with superintendents, principals, and teachers to help them lead schools, to help them to be better at what they do, to encourage them, inspire them, maybe to challenge some traditional thinking or kind of that's the way we've always done it type mindsets. In my day job, I run something called Future Ready Schools, which supports schools all across the country, focused on district leadership. But at the end of the day, all of that work is to help amazing students, amazing kids just like you all across the country. So thanks for having me on today, and thanks for your positive feedback.
This is me and my mom's question. Do you know President Obama?
So I had the opportunity to work with President Obama's cabinet a little bit prior to a State of the Union related to some feedback on a State of the Union address. I worked directly with his U.S. Secretary of Education, Arne Duncan, and then John King in some of the work there. I can't say I know him as a friend in that regard. I can't say I can pick up my phone and text him right now, not to that level, but I certainly have great respect for his work, his character, and the things that he's done. So I wish I could answer that in a more positive yes, and I'll tell him you say hello, but unfortunately, I don't have that kind of power to do that.
What made you get on the positivity track?
I think it's been experiences in my own life that have helped me to see the world really in a different way. When I was born, and of course I don't remember this, these are all things that my parents was told that there's significant needs, and that at that age I wasn't going to make it out of the few days after the labor and delivery. And I think it was their faith in God and their ability to work things through that things didn't turn that way, because I'm here with you today. And so just looking at every day as a gift is something that's important to me, and recognizing the good in people. And one of the things that I recognize when I go coast to coast to work with amazing educators and students and whoever it might be, is I really believe there's good everywhere, and there's people that are working hard. And people like on social media and those kinds of things to point to the flip side to all of that. but I choose my lens each day, and I believe we all have the power to choose the lens in which we see the world. And so I think part of it is through that experience personally, but then also through experiences that I've had with my own children and others as they work to overcome adversity.
What is the biggest impact you've had in people's lives, and how do you think you've done that?
Well, I wish I could turn that over to other people to hear from them. So I'll tell you, if I could, what I hope my impact has been, kind of my goal in that regard. I spent a lot of time in schools as a teacher, as a principal, and then over at district office working with teachers, and now getting to work with people all across the country. My biggest hope is leaving an impact on somebody's heart by showing them that they matter, that their work matters, that they're loved and cared about, that people recognize the good inside of them. And so I hope that I motivate people to be the best that they can be in any given day. The reality is we all face challenges. Everybody's challenges are certainly unique. But when we choose the lens that we can and we work as hard as we can and we do good for others, really, which is, I believe, part of the mission of your overall podcast, my hope is leaving that imprint. And so in the last book that I wrote, I actually used an image of a heart that's made by two fingerprints. And part of that is because I like to make the analogy to remind educators, just like I hope to do, that their fingerprints of impact get to be on the people that they serve. And so my goal is to really inspire those people, to encourage them. And of course, from a practical end, to give them tools and tips and strategies to support the work that they do so that they can make a bigger impact in their community.
You are on social media and work with a lot of different types of people. However, sometimes social media isn't so positive. What do you do to stay positive with the negative people that might be out there?
Yeah, so that's a question. And negative people absolutely are out there. And so when you look at it, I really think it goes back to choosing the lens that we all have. The thing about social media that's great is it gives everybody a voice. The flip side to that is you have to remember it gives literally anybody a voice that can hide behind their computer, hide behind some sort of avatar. It's a lot easier to say things on a keyboard when there's really no accountability towards it when you can create anything. So it's keeping those things in mind. I think in life, anytime you take a stand for something, anytime you put your belief in something and you go on record and take a stand for something you really believe in, whatever that might be, you're going to find people on the other side that disagree. And so I really think that it's finding those things that you believe at your core, that you're passionate about, that you love, taking a stand for those kinds of things, and just recognizing that, yes, there's going to be people that disagree and they're okay to have their opinion on whatever it might be. But for me, I always try and model positive social media influence to other people. And so, here we are in the height of a political season with an election. It doesn't get much more divisive at a time right now, or you have one side of the aisle versus the other. And for me, I try to focus on, in the work that I do, focus on kids, first focus on loving and caring about kids and supporting them in every way. And to me, that's a non-negotiable. And if somebody's going to reach out or say negativity or attack for that, I can go to bed at night, put my head on the pillow, knowing that if I'm staying true to my core and what I believe and doing the right thing, I don't really care what other people have to say because I know I'm doing the right thing for me in that regard. And so sometimes you got to be able to say, people are going to have their opinions, whether I'm a student at middle school, student at high school, or even professionally on social media. People are going to have their opinions, and that's okay. They can think what they want. But at the end of the day, it's not going to change who I am and what I'm passionate about.
Not everybody has the same opinions. Everybody is so divided right now. Do you ever think how your positivity brings people together? If so, how do you think that works?
Yeah, absolutely. I think social media has done, there's certainly done a lot of good where we can take podcasts like yours and share them out, or highlight the amazing things that students are doing or kids are doing outside of school, or just people in general, and highlight those things. The flip side, as you pointed out, is there's certainly a lot of negativity, and people can share a lot of things that are false or things that are inaccurate, things that are just plain mean. And so for me, it's really trying to model to other people what it can be, and how, if I like to talk about issues, not necessarily people. And I think I don't remember the exact quote. I know it was one of our presidents. I'm sure we could all look it up. But something about, small minds talk about people, and big minds or intelligent mind, whatever it is, talk about more issues. And I really believe, wherever that quote came from, I'm sure I could look it up, but I really believe it's that kind of thing there as well. So I try and avoid, especially if it's something negative. The other piece of advice that I think about there is, it doesn't mean that personally I agree with everything that's out there or I'm positive about everything. What I'll do is if I have a disagreement or there's things that, which absolutely happens all the time, it's that idea of kind of criticize locally, but share positives globally. Meaning if I have a disagreement with somebody or feel something about it, I might shoot them more of a private message and say, hey, can we talk about that? Can we rethink about that? As opposed to sharing it out to one additional person, but for all of my followers to see, if it were to be something that would be in a disagreement or make, kind of pull them down. And so, it's understanding that you can also try and control your social media in the sense of, I really only try and follow people that encourage others, that inspire others. I do think it's important to follow people that have different viewpoints and have a different lens than I do. I think that's a really good thing. But, when I see people out there that are just constantly condescending to other people or trying to tear people down, I'll do my best to make sure they don't show up in my feed because I don't have time for that. But to have a diverse set of views really to move forward can help push my thinking to make me better at what I do. And I think that's really important. So I think, choosing who you follow and who you connect with on social media is a really important point, whether you're a high schooler or whether you're doing it professionally like myself.
What are the positive things you'd like to tell everyone to know about the people you've met during your travels?
So I do get to meet so many different types of people from different backgrounds, different cultures, all across the country. And the first, like I said just a few minutes ago, is I really believe there's good in every person. And so for me, it's even in the heated conversations, it's finding where can we agree? And this even kind of aligns with your last question a little bit of where is some common ground? When I look at people and see the goodness out there of the work that we're doing, what sells newspapers and you'll find on back of headlines is not the amazing things that are happening day in and day out from people. From the smallest of things that make a difference, from the, letting somebody go ahead of you in a grocery store, to holding the door for a stranger walking into a local pharmacy, to things like that just go unnoticed all like time and time again. I think it's recognizing the goodness in all those people and trying to model it to my own family, my own children, and those pieces. But I see it from coast to coast, no matter where I go. To see it from people like you, who at your age, some people might think, well, I can't start a podcast. I'm not going to have an audience. I'm only this age. But somebody like you that's brave, somebody that's like you that's courageous, the type of characteristics that you have, I also see in lots of adults out there in some of the issues that they take on as well.
What are your long-term goals in terms of what you can do for other people?
That's a great question. And for me, I think it's just about maximizing impact and being as useful to people as I can be. So for me, it would be, how can I support the most amount of people, but at the same time, balance my time for my family and for my own kids? And so I struggle a little bit at times with working so much or so hard because I really love what I do and I love the work that we do and that I do. And so I think it's maximizing impact to help touch the lives of people, to offer the most amount of people encouragement and inspiration as possible, as well as give them things like books and podcasts and things that they can listen to grow professionally as well. And so I guess the more that I can do that, the more lives that I get to have, that I'm blessed to be able to touch out there. And so I'd say that's really continuing down the path that I am is really my long-term goal.
So I always ask this question. Who do you think is someone positive that should be on my podcast in the future?
Well, I've got a lot of names that I could think of that should be on your podcast in the future. That would be positive. Throw one out there would be a good friend of mine named Alan Stein Jr. Alan has coached some of the best NBA players to ever walk the earth. I'm talking people like Kevin Garnett, Steph Curry, Kobe Bryant, and he has coached them on not just on a basketball court, but about mindset and about striving really for scenario, like to be your best in all situations. So when you look at the pressure of some of these athletes, people that millions of people will watch them play, and at times watch them miss a game-winning shot and boo them as they walk across the court, or boo them as they, don't have such a good game. in some of those places, how do those types of mindsets, how do you stay positive when you've got that social media like you were just talking about, and now you've got hundreds of thousands of tweets coming your way saying that you ruined the game, you ruined the season, all those kinds of things? How can you, as a basketball player like that, or as a athlete like that, really contain a mindset? And how do you bring your best all the time, even when you're not always feeling your best mentally? Let's face it, we all have days where we don't feel like getting out of bed, or we don't feel like putting on our best all day long. He's somebody that really coaches people and inspires people to be able to bring that mindset every day and to be at their best all the time. And so I'm willing to make a connection for you, because I think he would be a great podcast person for you, and somebody that maybe you could talk to.
Thank you for being on the podcast, Dr. Murray. It was a pleasure to meet you and learn from you.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.